Lucas Paquetá has hit out at recent reports concerning his Football Association betting charge as entirely false.
He was charged by the organisation almost a year ago for betting breaches and spot fixing.
FA pushing for a lifetime ban for him. Right, you need to tell us what is going on.
It's the 73rd minute against Tottenham, and the out-of-form Brazilian prince of East London is shedding tears from his face. Just seconds before, the star of Boy of the Hammers had been booked. It was the 8th time Paquetá has received a yellow card this season, and it might actually be his last. The Brazilian magician, who is just entering his prime, might be forced to retire from professional football at a young age, after sacrificing so much for so many years. In the next few days, Paquetá will stand in front of the Independent Regulatory Commission, IRC, in a hearing that might put an end to his career. In total, Lucas Paquetá has been charged with a total of 6 counts by the Football Association, FA, which are in 2 categories: breaching betting rules and non-cooperation during the investigation. In the first category, Paquetá is defending against 4 counts which are all related to spot fixing, which is different from spot betting. Spot betting is legal. This is when you bet for a player or a team to get a card, yellow or red, while spot fixing is when a player, in this case Lucas Paquetá, agrees to influence a certain part of a match, for example by receiving a yellow card, rather than trying to fix the final score. The Brazilian is accused to have done this on 4 different occasions, which resulted in 4 different counts. But this is not the only problem the Brazilian must deal with. Even if he is not found guilty, he will still have to prove that he cooperated with FA officials in the investigations which were being done on him. The FA has charged Paquetá with 2 breaches of FA Rule F3 in respect of alleged failures to comply pursuant to FA Rule F2, which relates to providing information and documents. FA Rule F2 allows the FA to require any participant to attend and answer questions, provide documents, information, or other materials upon reasonable notice. If a participant does not comply with these requests, it can be considered a breach of FA Rule F3, which constitutes misconduct. It is alleged that Paquetá tried to bury evidence by throwing the cell phone which contained serious evidence of his participation in spot fixing. But how did Paquetá find himself in all these troubles? Why was he even betting? How was he discovered, and what are his chances of winning the verdict? Let's dive into this troubling case. It all started on August 12, 2023. It was the first game of the season, and Paquetá was being hunted by Manchester City, the reigning champions of the previous season. This will be a crucial point in our story. The game against Bournemouth was coming to an end, but in the 93rd minute, Paquetá was booked by Peter Bankies for a challenge against defender James Hill, the 4th foul he had conceded. But things took a different turn when the referee Peter Bankies wrote in his report that he had booked Paquetá for persistent infringement. 2 days later, the FA launched a formal investigation, a decision they informed West Ham on the 16th of August, 2 days after they formally launched their probe. West Ham informed Manchester City about the decision, and this prompted City to pull off their £80 million transfer after both teams had finalised the deal. But even before that game, Paquetá had started to be suspected back in March, 5 months before the launch of the investigation. The initial investigation was conducted by the International Betting Integrity Association, IBA, which received an integrity alert after several bookmakers in Brazil reported an unusual number of bets on Paquetá to be booked during West Ham's Premier League game against Aston Villa the previous season on the 12th of March. He was shown a yellow card with 20 minutes left for a late challenge on John McGinn, the only card of the game. It is alleged that Betway, the official sponsor of West Ham, was the first bookmaker to alert IBA. Betway got suspicious of Paquetá because of 3 main reasons. First,
There was the high stakes put on him to get a yellow card compared to the normal modest sums which are normally involved in spot betting. The stakes are believed to be around £700 to £400. It is believed that about 60 bets were placed on PAQUETÁ to be booked. The second reason was the location. The majority of the suspicious bets were traced to PAQUETÁ Island, a small beach paradise island which is just off the coast of Rio de Janeiro. This is where the Brazilian was born and from which he takes his name. Among the people who were involved in betting, it is alleged that one of them was his uncle, Bruno Tolentino. The third reason was the nature of accounts. It is alleged that most of the accounts which bet on PAQUETÁ's bookings were new accounts, which put a huge stake on a very unlikely scenario of a technical player getting a yellow card while playing against middle teams.
The IBA had noticed that PAQUETÁ's booking against Leicester City's Boubakary Soumaré in November 2022 had attracted an unusually large volume of bets, and they also noted how his booking against Leeds in May 2023 was quite suspicious. By that time, PAQUETÁ wasn't aware of the investigation going on behind the scene. The FA started to investigate him in August, and after 2 months, he was invited for an interview. He was asked to hand in his mobile phone, bank statements and phone records, to which he provided. Later on, the FA returned his mobile phone, but in the meantime, PAQUETÁ alleges that he had bought a new mobile phone. So when FA brought back his old mobile phone, he threw it away, perhaps because he believed he would not need it. But for FA investigators, this is an offense. They allege that his decision to throw away his old mobile phone constitutes a plan to hide evidence which would be needed in his investigation. In other words, he tried to obstruct the investigation, which is forbidden by FA rules. But PAQUETÁ has prepared a strong defense, which will be centered on 2 key points. The first one, it is alleged that PAQUETÁ will deny any connection with anybody who has placed a bet on his booking. But his most defensive mechanism will be centered around the game against Bournemouth, a game which triggered his initial investigation. This game was played when City and West Ham had already agreed the transfer of Lucas Paquetá for £80 million. Before that game, it is said that Paquetá requested David Moyes, who was the manager at the time, to drop him out so that he can continue to prepare for the City move. Moyes refused, but agreed to replace Paquetá at the earliest opportunity. If you watch the game back, you can easily notice that Paquetá was constantly looking back at the bench, as if he was signaling his willingness to be removed on what was supposed to be his last game at West Ham. His defense will show this as the evidence of Paquetá's innocence, given that he didn't want to play the game to begin with. Also, his defense will ask the FA, which will be on the prosecutor's side, why they think Paquetá has waited for the last minute of the game to get a yellow card, which doesn't make sense given that he would have tried it earlier if he truly wanted to influence the game. West Ham has also provided Paquetá disciplinary history, which shows that he is a passionate player who gets more yellow cards than most of his teammates. If Paquetá is not found guilty, he might get a huge sum of money in compensation, which is the same case with West Ham as well. At the moment, Paquetá is said to be focusing on his family and his career, but there is no denying that the 2 years ongoing situation has badly affected his form, even if he is known to be inconsistent. His wife, Duda Fournier, has shown her support from her Instagram account, noting that her husband is innocent. "I've never said anything here, and maybe I shouldn't have. My husband has a posture and strength that I admire and that impresses me. We've been living this nightmare for 2 years and he's always strong. He's always had it in his head that he would only defend himself at the right time and place. There's nothing against him. Have you never noticed that? Anyway, God knows everything and only He knows why we're going through this. And only because of Him are we well and living happily as a family. I just wish people would respect him. People are mean and unfair without knowing anything." The high-stake hearing will be held in the next few days. Thank you for watching. You can subscribe to get more in-depth football analysis.